Hello, hello, hello. This is Coach Porter with Read the Coverage Sports. So today we're going to start taking a look into our draft analysis for the upcoming NFL draft here next month. Hopefully, we'll see how with all the COVID-19, how that ends up happening. But I do want to kind of transition into getting into some draft analysis. Primarily going to be looking at quarterbacks. If we can fit it in, I may try to get into some running backs, but quarterbacks is really where I want to make my focus. Just as a putting it out there, I'm not going to be covering Joe Burrow or Tua, just because those are pretty much sure things. The only thing limiting for Tua, obviously, is his injury, but even then, I expect him to be the second quarterback off the board. He deserves to be the second quarterback off the board. So we'll be looking into other guys past those, because those two are pretty much going to be covered night and day, and I think pretty much everyone knows what to expect from those two. But today we're going to be taking a look at Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert, he's the senior quarterback coming out of Oregon. He's a 3-year starter. He's played for 4 years. There's been a lot of hype for him for several years. Last year there was a lot of conversation whether he was going to come out in the draft, and then there was conversations would he supplant Kyler Murray as a top overall pick, which I think ultimately Kyler still would have been taken first, but Justin could have particularly been the second pick last year. He ended up staying here for his senior year, which they had a fairly successful year. Obviously, they didn't make it to the national championship or the playoffs, but he did make it to the Rose Bowl, and they did end up beating Wisconsin out at the Rose Bowl. Over the years, I've been kind of paying attention to Justin. Personally, for me, I think 2017 was his best year. That year ended up being shortened due to a broken collarbone, I believe that's what it was. But 2017, I believe, was his best year, where he was really just phenomenal. 2018, I do think he was successful. I do think he played really well. But then here in 2019, I think he's taken some steps back. It may not be necessarily that he's taken steps back, but the expectation for him is so high that it just seems like he's just not lived up to that. Getting into Justin, he is a big, he's like 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in that area, 220, 230, big build. He ended up running like a 4.65, 4.68 at the combine in the 40. So he's got a little bit of wheels on him, but you're never going to mistake him for like a Jalen Hurts. He's not going to really beat you in the run game. I think this last year, he had like 50 yards rushing for the season. I don't think he had more than like 550 yards rushing for his entire career. So while he's capable of moving around and being mobile, he's not necessarily a quick guy. He's a big, tall, long stride kind of guy, so he doesn't have that real explosiveness in the run game like a Kyler or a Tua or something like that, which is fine. He has plenty of mobility. Moving on into like his stats and everything like that, I believe he only threw 6 to 8 interceptions. He was pretty low on the interception spectrum, which means he makes, for the most part, pretty good decisions. He is kind of bolstered in that Oregon system, where it's a lot of spread it out, throw a lot of screens, running back and tight end and wide receiver screens, so that kind of helps him. Accuracy-wise, he was up in the 65-68%, which is okay. Typically, in those type of systems in particular, you expect to see guys more in like the 70 range, especially when you see just like how many like short passes and screens they throw in the Oregon system. But even when we get into the tape, there are quite a few misses, even in that like short yardage situations and things like that. So there's been a lot of like speculation of where Justin would go. Right now, he's projected as a top 10 pick. I think most people are projecting him as the third quarterback taken or the third quarterback on the board. There's even, I've seen as high as number 2, just kind of depending on how the injury situation ends up going with Tua, and how teams kind of leery on that or not. But for the most part, I think most people have him comfortably at number 3. Personally, for me, I don't even have him as... He's like a fringe first-round pick for me, honestly. We'll get into the film, and I'll really get to break that down for you, but for the most part, there's so many inconsistencies, and inconsistency is really going to be like the hot word whenever we're talking about Justin Herbert. There's inconsistency in his mechanics, and they're just everywhere. There's a lot of little things that he does that really become like super inefficient for what you're looking for, especially in just this high level of quarterback play. You're expecting him to do one thing, and then you just see it, and it just doesn't quite add up. Now, he's got really high highs, though. The dude has a cannon of an arm. He can make all the throws all across the field. But outside of that, there's a lot of things that I really question, I really worry about, that the expectation for him is he's going to be able to have to come in and do well early. This is a guy that's going to have to sit. There's a lot of things he's going to have to polish. While he does have a strong arm, he's not like a freak of a strong arm like a Patrick Mahomes that can make up for a lot of those deficiencies. There's a lot of issues that we see just kind of come out in his game, which, like I said, we'll get into the film. We'll be breaking down the Auburn game, the Colorado game, and I can't remember. There's a third game we'll get into, but there's just a lot of issues for me. Let's get into this graphic here right quick. So just kind of looking at the pros, kind of what we talked about. He's a prototypical size, like he's a big 6'6", like I said, type guy. He's got an incredibly strong arm, and then he's capable of making these really spectacular throws that where you see it, you're just like, yeah, that dude is the dude. He can really make the throws. Moving into the cons, though, there's a lot of inconsistencies in his mechanics that I'll get into a little bit more finite here in just a second. One of his big issues, though, is he locks onto his reads, and it's hard to really gauge that because we don't know how Oregon teaches it, or I don't at least, where he may just be a 1, 2, 3 is me, but you see a lot of the time he'll see his main guy, he'll lock onto that guy. If it's not open, then he's really either quick to like drop it out to the check down, or he tries to take off. You don't actually see a lot of like scanning the field. You really don't even see that many like intentional throwaways. There's some that end up being throwaways, but that's just because of his inconsistency with his accuracy and mechanics. Another big issue that we have is his lack of touch, and you'll see that a lot in the film where there's situations where he just needs to drop the ball over a linebacker in front of a safety, just real easy touch type throws, and he's just incapable of doing that. And it's not even like he can do it sometimes and not other times, just more often than not, he's just not able to get those touch type throws in that are really important. He's really a rocket arm type of guy, and there's not a lot of adjustment into those different types of throws. And then finally, for me, really, and this is obviously subjective, I just don't see him as that big it factor type guy. I just don't see them as that big galvanizing leader. He's just going to lead the troops in a battle. People rally around him. He seems like he's a great kid. Everything you hear about him from his teammates, they love him. Whenever he speaks, he's really like mature. He gives the right answers and everything like that. But he seems like he's kind of a more quieter type character, and just not that like exuberance. Like when you hear Joe Burrow speak, Joe Burrow commands the room. Whenever you hear like a Tom Brady speak, he commands the room. And that's not necessarily like something that you have to do, but it's weird to me. You just never see him really take over games. There's games in particular where he's facing really tough defenses, particularly like the Utah game or the Arizona State game, where those are NFL type defenses, and he just never takes those games over. Like they just kind of really get onto him. Moving on into some of the mechanics that we're talking about, there's a couple things, and like again, it's hard to gauge all of these because you don't know what he's being taught at Oregon. There may be reasons for all this that explain all this and make it not a point. But you'll notice in his drop, typically because he's in the shotgun all the time, you take it and then you're coming straight back, right, left, right. But he takes you're dropping straight back, but you're going back with that right foot first. He takes like a false step with his left foot, then goes into his right. And like I said, it could be a timing thing that they do that. It could be a quick game thing to get him open, his hips more open to the left side of the field. I don't know. I don't see a lot of purpose of it, and it's in almost all of his dropbacks. The next thing, and this is again not a super big deal, but there are moments where I think it becomes an issue. or if you watch him, whenever he takes the ball and he's dropping back, he likes to spin it. He'll spin it in his hands to kind of get the grip where he wants it. This isn't a huge deal, but in the quick game, it becomes a problem because it throws off timing. If you need to just like catch it and let it rip, and he's like catching it, spinning it, then going, and that just causes timing issues. And it becomes almost to the point where it's almost like a tell, where if he's dropping and he doesn't spin it, it's probably a quick game, versus if he's dropping and he's spinning it, it's probably just a traditional drop and read and throw type play. I've not been able to study enough film to say that like 100% confidently that it is a tell, but it is something that could potentially be one. And I just think it's just something that throws off rhythm and throws off his efficiency. And then the other thing that is pretty problematic is whenever you drop back to throw as a quarterback and you go to make the throw, your opposite arm, so if you're right-handed, you're left-handed, elbow needs to come down, and it needs to be close, tight into the chest, and it comes down hard. And that allows this other opposite, your actually throwing arm, to get over the top, get down nice, smooth, and in rhythm. A lot of the time, he's not in here tight to the chest. He's out far wide, and it's just inconsistent. Sometimes he's close, sometimes he's wide, sometimes he's just like really wide. And so that just really rushes the throw, or it just makes it to where you're never getting a comfortable throw because it's always different. You'll see, like I said, you'll see some throws where it's in tight, nice, where it needs to be. Sometimes it's out wide, sometimes it's out like real wide. It's like a chicken wing. And that really just that inconsistency in those mechanics just makes things really hard. You'll notice that they'll be, because they, at Oregon, that system that they run a lot of the same plays multiple times throughout the game, which is common in college particularly, but he'll make one throw one way and then come back 2 quarters later, make the exact same throw, but the mechanics will be different, and it'll be the same situation, perfect pocket, things like that, and just the elbow's off. There's a spin in the ball, there's the drop step, like his base sometimes gets really wide on him, and sometimes he's a little bouncy in the pocket versus, kind of really standing tall as a statue. I do think he kind of rushes whenever there's any type of pressure in his face. He likes a very clean pocket. Whenever the pocket's clean, whenever he's nice and fresh, he can make those really spectacular throws. But whenever he's rushed or whenever things kind of get chaotic or befuddled, he doesn't do well in that chaos type situations. That's where he really starts to crumble. And then those mechanic inconsistencies really come back to bite him. But overall, that's kind of my just initial thoughts. Like I said, we're about to get into the film and we'll really kind of get down to the nitty gritty. This last slide I want to take a look at is just my idea of just some pro comparisons. I think at the highest peak, or the top end, we're looking at like a Ryan Tannehill type prospect. I think physically, they're very similar. I do think Ryan is a little thicker, which is helpful for running and, just staying durable and things like that. And when we're talking about Ryan, I think his high end is this last year Tennessee Titans Ryan Tannehill, where he's in a really great system, where he's able to really rely on the run game and the play action passing to do what he's really good at, which is throwing the ball over the top. Justin Herbert has a really great deep ball. Ryan Tannehill throws a really good deep ball, especially off of play action. And I think in the right system, he can become into something like that. Now, you have to remember, it's taken Ryan Tannehill several years for this to really click. Obviously, system matters and things like that, but it's taken a while. If you were to compare this last year's Ryan Tannehill to 2 years ago, Miami Dolphins Ryan Tannehill, they're two very different players almost. So under those right circumstances where he could sit and learn, I think he could be at the most really good Ryan Tannehill. But on the low end, and I think, unfortunately, something that I think is more comparable is a Blaine Gabbert. To me, he reminds me a lot of Blaine Gabbert. They're very similar physically. They're both, those big, taller guys. They both ran pretty good times in the 40. I think Blaine Gabbert was pretty much a similar prospect in terms of he ran like a 4.6, 4.7. Physically, they're about the same. They both come out of these really wide spread offenses. Blaine Gabbert came out of Missouri, obviously, but there was just a lot of inconsistencies in Blaine's game that really kept him from living up to the hype. Blaine was, I think, the second quarterback taken in that draft. It may have been third. I always forget whether it was Jake Locker or Blaine Gabbert that was behind Cam Newton. But for a while, there was conversations that Blaine Gabbert was the best quarterback in the draft. Obviously, time has seen Cam Newton was drafted first, obviously, so that was justified. But there was conversations that Blaine Gabbert was supposed to be a stud. It just never worked out. Like I said, consistency issues, scheme fit, things like that. He went to the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had to start really early because they had just really bad quarterback situations over on top of him. There's coaching changes and all this, that, and another. And that's kind of my worry for Justin Herbert, is because all the hype is projecting him to be a top 10, even the number 3 quarterback taken off the board, which will be a top, maybe even a top 5, top 10 quarterback. That the expectation is going to be you got to start like right away or quickly. And I think that's just an equation for disaster for Justin Herbert. I think he's going to have to sit. He's going to have to learn. He's going to have a lot of mechanic refining to do. Think of how Patrick Mahomes sat for that almost entire year, 15 games, so he can get all those mechanics fixed. If that can happen for Justin, I think he'll do really well. If he's rushed, then I think he's Blaine Gabbert, and that's heartbreaking because I think he's a really good kid. But anyway, that is my just initial thoughts. We'll get into the film, and we'll take a look at that. All right, we're getting into the film here for Justin Herbert. So first we've got our Washington game. So a little later in the year. This was week 8. So this first game here, we've just got it's going to be a quick little screen out here, and we're going to notice this is just some of the inconsistencies we were talking about. This is just a lone throw ball. Now, receiver gets it, he makes a play, but in the screen game, this type of accuracy is incredibly important. Getting that ball up to his face mask, up to his chest, so he can just catch it and run it, and he doesn't have to adjust on it, it's a really, really big deal. And it's just really unfortunate that the receiver's got to go all the way down to the ground in order to get that. All right, so next up, we've got this is a really good throw here. It's a nice on-time throw. We get a good drop back. And we just get nice out there to the drive in the corner right there. Just a really, really good throw. All right, next up, here we're gonna get a miss here on a screen. We get this drop. Now, again, is this an easy throw? No. But this is, a top 10 quarterback type throw that you have to make these. Move the chains. All right, here, so we get, we just get a miss here. We get a nice drop. We're going to roll. Now, we do get to see his mobility there a little bit. But the big thing is here, he misses short. And for a guy that big of an arm, you shouldn't miss on those. Looks like a curl route. So here we're getting a nice drop. See, they stand really nice in the pocket. And then we miss. This needs to be a drive that right there to the sideline. You need to be able to anticipate that a little bit better and just really be able to drive that in there. All right, we get some good movement here. We're seeing his mobility, seeing him be able to keep the play alive. Now, we do miss this throw. I'm not going to hold this one against him. This receiver should have been able to come back and make this. You would like to see him be able to drive that in there, but he is also running around, making a play there. But it is 3rd and 10. This is a play you need to be able to complete. All right, right here, we're 2nd and 9. We're going to get our drop. This is just a really, inexcusable miss. 2nd and 9. We got 2 receivers to the left, one at the top of the screen. We got just a little quick in or speed in, and we miss. We miss it like a pretty wide margin. You can't argue maybe there was a miscommunication there, but it looked like he was just supposed to hit that in coming in. That's just, again, throws you can't miss. So here we're going to get a drop back all the time, and this is one of those touch throws that we're talking about. We get this in here. Again, he's not rushed. It's a 4-man rush. And then that's a touch throw. You make it in over those linebackers. Get another drop back here. Get a throw. This is another one. He needs to be able to drive this to the sideline. Which, for a kid, which, as we talked about, with as strong as arm as he has, it's just it's just where this inconsistency really shows. Now here we go. We get just an absolute beautiful throw. We stand in there, face the pressure, put just a dime right there in between two guys. Our guy makes a play for us. We get it. That's the spectacular, like, wow throws that we talk about when we really look at the high stuff of Justin Herbert. Here we go. We get another one. We get a good stand in there. Stands in the rush. He drives it to the right side right there. This is, again, we talked about this coming to the other side where he just misses it. But here coming to the right with pressure, he makes it, and he just drives it in there. It's a beautiful throw. He gets good anticipation on it, and this is a 3rd and 10. He gets to move the chains. We're going to get another miss here. We get him. We get the nice drop back. This is a rollout. Again, no pressure, and he misses high. That's another touch throw. We talked about a lot of his touch throws, throwing it in between two guys. They sail on him quite a bit. It's more like he tries to put the ball where it needs to go versus just throwing the damn ball. All right. So we'll get another roll. Get a nice move around there. Throw this. And again, this just should be air. This should be going out more to the right. But I'm just not quite sure what he saw. But he's lucky this didn't get intercepted. This one's a little confusing to me. I'm not quite sure where he was meaning to go. It looks like he's trying to go to the outside receiver running deep, or the inside receiver running deep, excuse me. But there's a little bit of a mix-up. So I'm not sure. He's got one-on-one with the inside guy. But where the ball's thrown, it could look like he's getting to the out, but it's just hard to tell. But regardless, it's a miss. All right, here we go. We get another deep ball miss here. Again, not a lot of pressure. He throws that deep going to the left, going to like the corner of the end zone. Put some air underneath that. That's probably a touchdown. There's no one deep. All right, now we're moving into the Colorado game. There's quite a few more good plays here in the Colorado game. Granted, Colorado is not very good. But we'll get into it here. So we get a nice drop back. Look, just a good, easy, in-rhythm throw to the receiver. Move the chains. That's 4th and 5. That's a throw you need to make. That's a great throw. Got another one here. Just another really good throw. This shows really just what he is capable of. Just really putting it out there. Again, see, there's going out to the left. He drives it. It's not like a really hard drive. He puts enough air underneath it to get over the linebacker. He gets it there where it needs to go. You get fake. Just another on-time little throw. It's like a little slant. So again, you see the inconsistencies of where he can make these throws. We know he can make these throws. We see that he can make these throws, but then come other times he just misses, and that's where it gets so frustrating. So here again, just no pressure. He's by himself. Now, this is a dime, absolute dime. He puts it on the money where it needs to go. The receiver just drops it. So this one's not on Justin. This is a perfectly thrown ball. Just again, this is the stuff he's capable of. We just don't see it enough. So here we go. We're on 3rd and 5. We need to, at least get a first down. We've got less than 10 yards to get a first down. We're in the red zone area, and we miss in the corner of the end zone. That shouldn't be another one that you drive the ball in there. You anticipate it. You put it out there where only your receiver can get it, which he did, but it's just not in the right ballpark of where it needs to be. Not for a guy that's supposed to be a top pick like this. All right. Again, we're 3rd and 5 here. Nice drop. Puts it in there. Get a nice completion. That's what we need. All right, we get a drop here. No pressure. And we miss this short. And again, this is another one. He's incredibly lucky this doesn't get intercepted. He really just throws this short. He throws this deep. Maybe his receiver doesn't get it, but it's out of harm's way. And he at least gives his speedy guy, a chance to go get it. Where here, he throws it short. It's not even really a back shoulder because it's throwing it to the inside. If he wants to throw the back shoulder, he needs to be throwing it more to the outside. But your receiver can't do anything. He's got a guy trailing him. At least put it out of harm's way, and you don't get a pick. All right, we get another drop back here. This one is just a beautiful, beautiful throw. That's the type of throws, again, he needs to be making all the time. Just an absolute dime. Here we got 2nd and 9. Get a fake here. And right here. Now, should this receiver catch this throw? Yes. Is Justin making it easy on this receiver? No. This should be just like a gimme. The guy is almost wide open. And he has to make a crazy adjustment. It'd be a great catch on that receiver if he could make it, especially because that looks like it's a tight end, fullback type. Like, that's just not the type of throws you make to guys like that. Like, that needs to be a touchdown. You can't give up touchdowns. Like, it just can't happen. All right, moving on. A nice drop back, got some pressure, just another dime. See, again, this is over a guy, perfect placement, like, with pressure in his face. These are the, type of throws Justin's totally capable of making. We just don't see them consistently enough, and that's what my issue. All right. On, we got a 2nd and 12. Here we're going to miss him deep. Just no excuse. Your guy has a step. By all means, that's open. Now, I know we're up 38-3 here, but he catches that, it's almost guaranteed to be a touchdown. Again, you just can't leave touchdowns on the field. All right, now we're moving into the Auburn game, which I know the order out of these is a little out of sync. I know Auburn was the first game of the year, I believe. So this first place here is just a sign of his running and mobility capability. So we see him roll out. Nothing's open, so he just takes it, tucks it, puts his nose down, gets a touchdown. Just a really great run there. Just again, we're on 3rd and 7. Gets it right to the numbers, right to the sticks where it needs to go. Gets the completion, keeps the chains moving. It's a great throw on the run. So he does have the mobility to really get stuff done. Here we go. We're 3rd and goal. This would have been an opportunity to really kind of put a stranglehold on this game. Auburn ended up coming back and winning. But right here, moments like this is why. So we're out here. We get this throw. We're behind the receiver right there. The receiver, you throw that to the pylon over there in the corner of the end zone, that's a touchdown. It's a wide open touchdown. Again, should the receiver make that? Yes. But you're asking a lot from your receiver from that point when you could have made that such an easy, just throw it to the outside shoulder, going to the pylon, and then you have a touchdown. And that's just, again, that's another touchdown that we're just missing. All right. This is the last play. And chuck it for a first down. But that's it for our film, guys. So we had 31 plays over the 3 games. And you can just see just the inconsistencies. I just kind of took out segments. You can go, I think all of these games are, at least the offensive throws are available on YouTube for you to watch. But I would recommend you do that if you're interested in seeing it. There's a lot of throws that I left on the game, bad and good. I took most of the bad ones, and I tried to take all the really good ones. I kind of left in like routine throws, but as we talked about, the consistency just isn't there. All right, and we are back from that film session. So, like, again, as we talked about and reiterated 1,000 times, just the inconsistencies. And that's my biggest gripe. There's a lot of work. He's got really, at the top end, he's got really good talent. On the low end, he's mediocre at best. He just doesn't, in my mind, I just don't see, like, a natural feel for the game. He's capable of making throws. He just doesn't seem natural. He doesn't seem comfortable in a lot of situations, which is discerning. But where would I put him right now? I still think he's probably worthy of a first round pick. I wouldn't pick him in the top 10. I'd be very careful unless you have a stable situation where he can sit for at least a year and learn and refine. If he can do that, then I would roll the dice. But if you're not in a situation where you can't, or if you're not in a situation where you can do that, I'd be very careful because he has bust potential. Unfortunately, I see more Blaine Gabbert than I do anything in his game. I think moving forward, we're going to take a look at Anthony Gordon. I think is I want to take a look at next, just kind of as a before I really get into the film, I like a lot of Anthony Gordon's game. I do have a lot of questions based on the numbers that he put up in that offense and everything like that, why that team was so unsuccessful this year. I'd like to find out why that is, but we'll get into that later. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Justin Herbert. I do think he's overrated, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of problems that have to get worked out before he can be a real franchise-type quarterback. But anyway, guys, that is it, and we will see y'all next time.